Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Analytical Amateurs, the show where a bunch of unprofessionals pretend to be professional. I'm Alcatabra. I'm here with Galactic
Yeah,
Blame
baby.
and Triple M.
Yeah,
That was
baby.
Triple M. That
It's
was Triple M right
fucking,
there.
it's here. I'm so excited.
Yeah. So,
I'm
say
having
hello.
a,
Yeah,
I'm
say
having a
hello,
really good
guys.
day.
Uh,
Hey,
yes.
yeah.
Guys,
You
guys,
forced
guys,
us into this, Triple M.
Yeah.
guys, guys.
So,
I hope
I
you're
admit
happy.
this is all
yeah.
me. So as this is my fault, I think I
Mhm.
should take the lead on this one.
Oh,
Okay.
all right. All
So
right.
so today, all of our avid listeners today,
Mhm.
we're gonna be talking about two of the greatest movies of all time. Right. The first movie we're gonna be talking about is Gotti.
Oh
And the
joy.
second movie we're going to be talking about is Gotti. Basically, Gotti is the best movie that I've ever seen. And honestly, if you don't like it, then you're a stupid idiot who lets the critics think for you. You're not a free thinker. You're an idiot. Um,
The troll.
Oh
I think
boy.
that I think that Gotti might genuinely be my favorite film of all time, simply because it I it sucks. I hate it. I can't keep it
It,
up.
True.
it's
It sucks. It's awful.
undescribably terrible.
It
But
is
we're
so
going to
bad.
try our
Pretty
best
much.
So the first film we're talking about is Gotti, and we're gonna rip it to shreds, and then
Of course.
we're gonna build it back up with another movie called Goodfellas, which
Mhm.
is one of the most famous movies of all time. It's my personal favorite movie ever made,
Mhm.
and I'm really excited because both of these movies are extremely similar, yet also so different.
Yeah.
And
So.
it's gonna
they're
be
both
great.
they're both mob stories based off of true stories.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So yeah.
one is good, and the other is Gotti.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah,
I
that's
think
pretty much it.
we should make Gotti an adjective. I think.
Pretty much
Yes,
just for
Do that?
unbelievably bad. That's so gaudy. um, but
ah,
yeah. So I mean, yeah, like we said, we're gonna be doing Gotti and then Goodfellas. Two big mobster movies based on real stories. One is more of a biopic. The other is more of a creative adaptation. And I mean, yeah, let's have some fun. um,
Here we
okay. I, as always, have to
mhm,
start out. I've got to do the thing I did with the Greasy Strangler,
of
right?
course.
I gotta say, I'm sorry, but I also have to say, you're welcome,
Of course.
because it's not often I see a movie like this. This is like, so the last time I saw a movie that was so bad I had to walk out halfway through was Holmes and Watson. I still
Ooh.
haven't finished Holmes and Watson.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
I don't blame you.
I don't
I
blame
got
you
30
either.
minutes in. I got 30 minutes and I was like, oh, that is enough for me. I don't want to do this. This is impeding on my mental health. I cannot function properly.
Mm.
And then I came back to it. It took me 4 viewings. Like, if I had to sit down and say, I'm going to watch this 4 times to get all the way through it. And it was really, I hate myself for it. I hate
Mm.
Gotti. I hate it a lot.
You should
There's a
also
lot
hate
of things
yourself
about
for
it that I
forcing us
don't
to
like.
watch this.
Of course. Good lord.
I don't understand what went wrong.
Yeah,
I
this
mean, I know
is
what went wrong.
well,
I know what
production
went wrong.
hell, of course. This movie was delayed for like 7 to 8 years, and it shows. There was a bunch of
Yeah.
writer drops. There was a bunch of behind the scenes drama. It's one of those like just disaster production hell situations, which is unfortunate because like the thing
Yeah.
is, so I mean I'm not even that much of a history person, but when it comes to John Gotti's life, it's quite interesting. So I don't know how you fuck this up that badly because there's a lot to work with in regards to this person's life. The Teflon Don as they called him, and they just didn't. It's just a mess. It's a mess, man. I don't even know what to say. Ugh.
I think it's like the
It,
way I think like a lot of the issue. Okay, because I watched Gotti before I watched Goodfellas, so
Mhm.
but we're gonna get into that later. Is a lot of the issues that I saw in Gotti that I couldn't describe what they were became 10,000 times more apparent when I
Mhm.
watched Goodfellas. I was like, oh, okay, because they're trying to go for a similar thing, which makes it
Mhm.
so easy to compare the two, that it's impossible to not look at them and compare them. Um, every issue that I had with Gotti was like, oh, I can describe that and compare it to something in Goodfellas. So, but I'll talk more about that later, I guess. So,
well, mob movies are kind of a niche for me. I love them.
mhm.
I love them so much. They are the characters are always so interesting. There's only like one or two mob movies I don't care for. Gotti, of course, is one of them.
Of course.
And Scorsese is my second favorite director.
Mhm.
And he gets a lot of. I'm gonna go off on, you know me. Here comes a little tangent.
It's all right.
Scorsese gets a lot of. Scorsese is one of my favorite directors, and he gets a lot of hate nowadays because he came out and had anything. He had the audacity to say something that wasn't overtly positive about the Marvel movies.
Oh yeah, I remember that whole controversy.
Yeah.
That whole
and
whole
now
thing.
everybody kind of dismisses his opinions because of this, and I hate it because he's such a good director. He's made so many fantastic movies, and I hate the whole all he does is mob movies because he doesn't. He made a lot of non-mob movies, but yes, he shines in that aspect because that's what he knows. The same way Quentin Tarantino knows, blood and guts and shit like that, and blah blah blah. So it's anyway, mob movies are kind of a niche for me. I love them, and Gotti pisses me off because I was gonna say the character of John Gotti, but the idea of John Gotti should be so easy to make a movie about because he's literally like the second most popular gangster of all time next to Al Capone.
Exactly.
Speaking of which, they also
it's not
fucked up a movie about Al Capone with Tom Hardy. That one,
Yeah.
I would say it's worse, but it's a different kind of bad.
Uh-huh.
But no, Gotti should be easy. You have a linear story. You literally have his entire life laid out in front of you. Just make it. Just write it down. Put it pen to paper. But somewhere along the line, they were like, what if we told the story, but we jump around through time for some reason? And it doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. It's like the first 10 minutes of the movie has like 4 time jumps. Why does it have 4 time jumps?
That's tell
a linear story.
Let me talk about the opening of this film because especially now, so from like taking screenwriting classes and everything, like I'm even more hyper aware of this than I was before. So as I really like comparing the two opening scenes between Gotti and Goodfellas, and I'll get to Goodfellas when we talk about that because that's a really good example of how to open up a movie. And Gotti is a really good example of how to absolutely fuck up a movie. So Gotti starts out with like awful, like almost stock footage shots of like New York. Like it doesn't even look really that good at nighttime. And then you just suddenly see John Gotti right there. John Travolta. I'm just going to call him John Travolta because all I see is John. So I'm just going to call him John Travolta through this whole thing. Anyway, so and you see him there and he turns right to the camera and he's like, New York is the greatest fucking city in the world. And you're like, oh, okay, why is he talking to me?
Someone slapped that on a poster.
You're like, why is he saying this? Other than the fact that it makes a good group chat name, why
that's an inside joke. Yeah, that's an inside joke for us.
Why are you telling me this? What is that? So that is his opening line. It's like, okay, what does that tell me about you? That tells me that you kind of like cursing, that you're talking directly to the camera. So maybe you break the fourth wall a lot. Like maybe that's your thing. But you're not giving me any insight into your character at all. And it's like either get arrested or whatever. So you're like, okay, so you're kind of telling me what might happen to you later, but I still don't have an idea of who you are or what you're doing. And then it cuts to fucking Pitbull. So actually, let me tell you the one thing that I think Gotti does well. Actually, the one thing I will give Gotti praise for one thing. Is that its opening scene, although dreadfully awful as it is actually the perfect tone setter of the rest of the film. Because what your first scene is supposed to do is it's supposed to establish the tone of what else you're about to watch. And the opening scene describes every piece of shit part of this film perfectly in the first minute and a half. And that's honestly impressive. So I'll actually give Gotti that is that I was like, okay, I guess now I'm prepared as to what's going to happen. So it does prepare the audience pretty well as to what you're about to watch. But that's the only good thing that I can say about the film, and even then,
No, and it's so
compliment.
weird. It's so weird how he goes. It's like New York is the greatest fucking city in the world, you know. And you live in the city of dreams, and that never comes up throughout the movie. That's not like a
No,
theme.
it doesn't.
It's not like the theme of the movie isn't like New York is a living, breathing. It's not like Casino. Casino is all about how Las Vegas is like a living, breathing city that changes and adapts through time and remains.
You could have like switched out New York with like another mob city like Chicago, and you wouldn't have noticed the difference.
No, he could have been like, let me tell you what. Let me tell you what. Akron, Ohio, greatest fucking city in the world. Wouldn't have come up with it.
Hey, yeah.
Akron, Detroit, Michigan, it's okay, but I'm John Gotti, and here's Pitbull.
It's
possible to talk about this movie.
I was like, man, okay, I guess I know what's going to happen.
Talk about this movie without comparing better movies. You can't do it. You
can't.
Every time I want to come up with a complaint, it's like the soundtrack wants to be Goodfellas, but it can't.
Because it's a shitty carbon copy of actually good movies. So it's like it's clearly taking inspiration from these movies, but it clearly doesn't understand what made those movies good. They think it's like, cool, they had a mob story, so let's do that. But they don't understand why
the
mob story is good.
What makes
people like
what
it.
makes it intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a mob story doesn't try to portray the mobsters as good guys. That's the first mistake they made. John Gotti was not a good man.
And like that brings up a good point that I want to get into, mainly dealing with morality of mobsters, because Gotti makes a fatal mistake in the fact that I won't say glorifies, but it sort of like portrays mob life like they're the martyrs, like they're the underdogs of society. Because you see a lot of points in which people are like praising Gotti, like saying like how the community loves him, which is true. People in like the community that Gotti lived in real life did like him, did look up to him and everything. However, the movie goes a step further to portray in its own narrative like he's some savior and some saint and some hero. Because by the end of the film, and I mean, we're skipping, but we'll get back in the other stuff. By the end of the film, they're talking about how, like, Gotti was trying to stand up to the system and make a point, and how his son should have been more like him, and he was this misunderstood hero. And I'm just like, no. I'm like, no.
Bad man.
I'm like, no.
Criminal.
Like, and then they like show all this like stock footage of people like, man, Gotti was misunderstood, people doing protests for him and all this stuff and all cheering him. And I'm like, yes, people liked him, but he was still a murderous criminal who did selfish things because of murder.
So if you want to portray the mafia in a sympathetic way, then you gotta like, you don't want it to be the big bad people that
Henry Hillett
are the ones that are like, getting other, that are like ordering, that are calling the shots. Like if you want to have someone that's more sympathetic, then you want them to be someone who's like kind of forced to be in it because there are people who are contributing to the mafia that are like on lower grounds, because this can, this is like, the whole system of like the Italian American mafia is like, a lot of the Italian Americans that were involved in it, were doing it because they were just part of the community and they would do like favors, but that doesn't mean that they would like, they wouldn't go out and kill people or anything for the most part. Most of them did not do that at all. So like if you want to portray someone sympathetically, it'd be that, but you can still like make Gotti interesting, but that doesn't mean that you have to portray him sympathetically. Like you can still have a shitty main character. Like Goodfellas does that really well, which we'll also get into later. It's like the fact that they do try to make Gotti seem a little too martyry.
The message is just so weird because, like, I'm saying, like, if they're suggesting that, like, the government surrounding Gotti and them was corrupt, maybe I could get behind that if they actually explored the government and the law and gave evidence to it, but they don't. They're just kind of there.
Because they don't elaborate on it, but, like, discrimination, the whole reason, like, the mafia and stuff exists is because, like, these communities, like, Italian Americans were, like, historically hated for, like, long, like super long periods of time.
And that you could write a movie on that of itself.
But they don't go into that. And like I only know that because of like family stuff. But I wouldn't have known that. They're just like, oh, the government's corrupt. It's like, yeah, but like they don't show it. They just say, oh, the government's out to get us. Like, okay, then show us that happening. And they don't even talk about the fact that they go after them because they're Italian. Forget that.
Like the only really like the best you get to elaborate it is that like there's a scene of like Gotti having like a street party, and then like a couple of cops show up like, this is illegal, and they're like, oh, but these people love what we're doing, are you gonna shut us down? And I'm like, is that supposed to be like a one up to the cops because it's still illegal? I really don't know what they're trying to say there.
Yeah.
And like, however, I did some digging and found out that the Gotti family was actually involved in the production of this film, which explains a lot. Like they were like supervisors. They gave the staff and John Travolta and them like exclusive dishes and made them food and stuff to sort of warm up to them. So something tells me they were kind of biased in the production.
They are. God forbid that somebody portray them in a negative light and tell the truth. Jesus,
like like you can clearly tell that they were biased in this production. I'm just like, as soon as I learned it, I was like, that explains a lot. Like, it's just like, sure, you could have like people involved for accuracy, but don't like straight up sway the narrative for no good reason. Other than that,
Monica, it's funny that you can say that. I'm gonna
I just saw her message in the Discord.
In our Discord, chill out with the criticizing.
It's half joking, but it's also not.
You're not wrong.
There's no mafia anymore.
So, if you want to take anybody's advice on that, trust me, it'd be mine.
Yeah, that's quite that's duly noted. But yeah, I mean, that's just kind of my whole stance on it. Like, this movie really didn't really know what to do with that. But more importantly, I guess we should get into like the movie itself. We've already talked about the editing, was how it was weird in the first 10 minutes, and that just keeps up for the whole film. Like, the film is not just not
the editing. It's every part of it.
For real, like the production is just not satisfying.
No, not at all. I mean, every part of this film is either just like the worst you've ever seen, or just like, just kind of
I want to talk about fucking John Travolta.
Oh boy,
what the hell happened to that man?
I don't know.
In his early career, he was in so many good movies. He was in Grease. He was in Pulp fucking Fiction.
Face Off. That's a joke for me.
Now he's in The Fanatic and Gotti.
I forgot about The Fanatic. That's a whole podcast topic of its own.
Talk about, but seriously, what the fuck happened to John Travolta? I think it was Scientology. I think it was a Scientology.
Is that true? Is he really a Scientologist? I've seen that meme.
Yeah, he's
going
like one
around.
of their main guys.
Oh boy,
he's like the guy for Scientology.
I thought that was just a meme.
He, Tom Cruise, and Ralph the Movie Maker are like the guys for Scientology.
Oh, good lord. I don't even want to know how to approach that topic, but yeah, that's something. Anyways, point is, like, with his
it's a mystery. He is such a mystery.
Yeah, like with him, like, I've not seen much of Gotti himself in person. Obviously, I wasn't alive when he was around. Point is, like, I have not really seen. Oh, of course. I have not really seen much of him, but I don't know. Are these mannerisms that John does in the movie accurate to like how Gotti acted?
I don't know, because it seems more just like stereotypical, like Italian American mobster. Yeah, it's just like, what is default mobster?
Like the muffly voice, the stutter, like all that stuff.
Honestly, I mean, it really looked like he took notes from like Joe Pesci or something, and just was
because I know he was definitely. I'll give him credit. He was definitely dedicated to this role. He talks about how he like spent time talking with the family, straight up wore Gotti's clothes like in the film. Tried to really embrace who he was. That is weird. It is very weird. Good lord.
Why? Like, why did you wear his clothes?
Like,
why did you? How does that help you get into the mind?
He tried to be the man Gotti and everything.
I just don't get it.
I don't know. This movie was just like, it was just so like confused, especially at the start. It was so confusing because like the whole time skip thing, which you
They
already
bounce
went
around
into.
a lot.
Yeah, like no, because like they suddenly go to like John Gotti, who's like shriveled up and old as fuck, like John Travolta and like super old makeup, and I was like,
Yeah, that
what
was
is this?
weird.
I was like, is that him older? Is that his dad? I'm so confused.
It doesn't
So
make sense.
It's crazy.
You have a
because
linear story.
It's crazy.
Tell a linear story.
Yeah,
Everything
no.
is laid out for you.
Here's the thing: is like, is this movie? It's baffling to me. It's impressive how much this movie, like how much exposition this movie has, and yet you still don't know what
They
the hell
still
is
don't
going on.
tell anything.
You don't know what the fuck is happening, like ever. You're so confused, and it's like it's ridiculous because I mean, just I mean, as a filmmaker, you can go on and on about exposition, but there are places for exposition. I think exposition gets knocked down a bit more than it should because obviously with something like this, which is based off of a true story,
Yeah,
a lot
you're
of
gonna
people
need exposition
into it
for this
and have like no knowledge as to who John Gotti is. I understand that, but at the same time, but all they ever do is just all their exposition is just plot or this is how I always am. Like, no, we don't know that's how you always are. We don't, you don't show that. You just say, remember, like, that's like the worst thing you can ever say is like, remember when this happened?
and we never saw it.
No, we don't fucking know. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you're telling the other characters because I'm so sorry, but
hey,
it doesn't matter what you're telling the other
development
characters.
off screen that one time.
Hey, yo, John, remember when we fell into that nest of Gundocks?
Like, no,
Hey,
no.
Remember when we bonded off screen? I do remember when we bonded off screen at Obi-Wan.
The only time anybody is ever going to have something like that is someone who is like knows everything about John Gotti. Is like, yeah, I know that. It's like, okay, yeah, but the general audience who is like, like 98% of your audience doesn't know what you're talking about. And on top of that, exposition is supposed to build like character. It's supposed to be. It's supposed to not just move the story along, but it's supposed to do other things. It's supposed to show character and development. That's another thing. I didn't give a shit about any of the characters in this film
For
at
real.
all. I didn't care.
I didn't
even flinch when his son died. When his son died, I was like, I don't fucking
care about his ugly ass son.
Oh, you mean with Junior or
it wouldn't be hard
Frank?
to make a 12-year-old dying sad and yet
Exactly.
somehow
The
mess that up. Like, how do you
The son
do that?
kept visiting him in prison that looked like he would like rape a girl at a party. That
Oh
guy,
Lord.
Whoa, okay.
He should never act again. I
was like, is he being dull on purpose? Like I was like, because I'm
John
like, is
Gotti's
this on
son
purpose?
famously fucking dull. Like I don't get it. I don't.
He seems so bored.
The thing about Gotti for me is a lot of my fascination with it comes not from the movie itself because, obviously the movie fucking sucks. I hate it.
Of course.
But
it's not even
but
like it's so bad it's funny. It's hard to get through.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say it's not. It's like the Amazing Spider-Man. It's just so fucking painfully mediocre and bad that it gives me a headache, and I don't want to watch it ever again. And I'm sorry, I made you watch it.
Worse than mediocre. But I mean, because there is that like uncanny valley of something that's so awful, it's fun, and I bet this would be more fun to watch with other people. But even then, I'd still be bored as hell.
What intrigues me about Gotti? What intrigues me about Gotti is what goes on behind the scenes. I like to talk about John Travolta and how fucking weird he is, or I like to talk about the choice for Pitbull as the composer. But what really gets me...
Do you know the context behind that? I want to know that.
Me too.
I don't, but what really gets me is the fact that after the movie came out and started bombing at the box office, they didn't take their licks. They didn't just say, "Oh well." They fucking went on the offensive.
Oh my god, you're right.
I'm
sure.
They started accusing.
I have never seen anyone proud of a 0% before.
No, I've never seen anyone do this before.
They went on like this witch hunt. It was crazy.
No, this was like completely new to me. Is they released more trailers, and they were like, the critics want you to believe that Gotti is a bad movie. Who are you gonna believe? Some fucking mook troll behind the keyboard, or yourself? I'm like,
That's a
I
legit
watched the
quote,
movie,
by the way, everybody. From an actual trailer.
It's true.
I would
They
know
actually
because
said-
you sent it to me.
They actually said, this is not, I'm not even paraphrasing, like, who the fuck are you gonna believe? Some fucking troll? And I'm like, well, I mean, when they're paid to do that, and you're paid to make movies, and your movie sucked, just take your licks, bro.
For
Even
real.
that'd
Clearly,
be like if the
you're the
people who
one.
made,
Clearly, you're the one who's more biased here.
it's like the people, if the people who made the Emoji Movie came out and said
Oh,
the
God.
epic trolls want you to believe that the Emoji Movie isn't awesome. Well, that's frowny face from us.
Oh my god! Don't give them ideas.
Just take the L. You lost. You made a
real.
shitty movie. You lost the election. I mean, you made a shitty movie. What?
They actually like were like so prideful, and I was like, for real? Why is this being like?
It's
I mean,
such fake news vibes. Just like they basically came out and said these reviews are fake news.
they're
But
from the bots, the bots that want to steal your views.
While y'all are doing that, I'm gonna just take a little gander down the audience score, because everyone likes to talk about how it may have a good critic score, but the audience scores were better. So let's see what the Gotti audience score is. It is 45.
Wow, that's higher than I expected.
Surprisingly high.
That's pretty high. It's got a 0% critic,
Of course,
45 audience. And I'm gonna look at some of the
I agree
ratings.
more with the critics on this one, which
I'm gonna
is
look.
saying a lot. 'Cause
Here's a
sometimes
review from one of the
critics are just
audience members. Best fucking movie of all time.
Oh,
John
Lord.
fucking Travolta is the greatest actor of our generation. He's like playing Flight Simulator for 9 hours straight. All movie he produced, massive walking nuke. Gotti proves Travolta has a huge dick. What am I reading? I enjoyed this movie.
I'm assuming that's a troll. I hope that's a troll comment.
That probably
It
is.
gave 5 stars. This person gave it 4 and said, I enjoyed this movie. Not a classic, but informative and exciting. A must-watch for non-movie fans.
No.
Travolta does. I think they forgot to say does a great job. He just says John Travolta does a job.
That is a good way to describe it. John Travolta does a job.
He got his paycheck and he left.
Also, greatest actor of our generation. What generation? John Travolta
Isn't he like,
is like.
70?
Isn't he like 6 generations old?
Man's fucking old.
This person wrote, ahead of his time. I had a boner the whole time for John and his huge bulge.
Oh lord, man! I'm assuming that's a troll too. Is there some weird sex club surrounding this movie that I don't know about?
Gotti Sex Club.
Oh, good
Welcome
lord.
to the orgy, pal.
Good lord. That is
Yeah.
too much. that is something. But
Yeah.
anyway.
Favorite, like one of the parts that like when I was because obviously I picked up my phone every once in a while when I was watching this because you can't fully pay attention.
Oh,
to
exactly.
It.
I like try to
it's
pay
impossible.
attention.
I watched
get
it in
bored.
passing. Yeah, no, I was bored 100%
Mm-hmm.
of the time, and I get like halfway through, and I totally forgot that like I'm halfway through, and suddenly just I hear Pitbull just fucking going at it, and I just totally. Pitbull was part of this movie. It was like a fucking jump scare.
That is so weird. Like that is such a
I was like,
weird
what's
music choice. Like
It's a weird music choice, but it's actually kind of weirder because they don't even use it that much. Like
Yeah.
it comes in a couple times. Because honestly, I feel like if you get Pitbull, you might as well go all the way with it, right?
Mhm.
You know, at least you're like, man, just like, you know, put all the stuff down. But it's like in there every once in a while, and to the point where it's like really jarring when you hear it. It's like it probably would be jarring either way. But if you heard it like constantly throughout the movie, like you'd probably start associating it with it and getting used to it. It's like, why do you get like a rapper from Miami of Cuban descent to sing over an Italian American
mobster movie?
Just makes no sense at all. And
it's
it's
this
like-
image. There's
Yeah,
this
and it's
image
just
of
like-
Pitbull where he's
it's
like
just-
larger than life. and
Yeah,
it's not true.
Good lord.
He's like 4'8", and
Oy.
he's kind of a chud.
it doesn't make any. I mean, like, I just feel like if they went all the way with it, you would have gotten used to it. But because they use it every once in a while, it's like really jarring, and it's I don't know. That's like, I mean, but you can nitpick stuff like that all throughout this movie. Every part of this movie has something like that. The least worst offending part of this is the cinematography, and it's not even really good.
It's just cinematography. It's just
passable. It's like it's student filmy.
It is. There's so many weird, like shaky cam that looks like it's out of The Office.
It's like someone took a basic cinematography class and took notes of like, oh, this is the shot. This is the shot I use when I want when I want a close up of someone talking. And they did that, but they didn't go any further with that.
Yeah, it's just so underwhelming.
It does its work, but it doesn't do anything for it, and that's the best part of the movie. That is the best part of the movie is the cinematography because it does its job, but it doesn't do anything else.
So John Travolta is on record saying, Pitbull is one of the most electric talents in the music industry today. Everything about him, his style, creativity, and culture make his scoring of Gotti the perfect marriage of the artist and material.
Okay, can you hear that culture part again? Because no, I'm not knocking down Cuban American culture or Italian American culture. I'm just saying they're not the same thing.
Yeah, that's just the weird. It's weird how they do that. Like the thing is, but back on cinematography, like it's just so basic. The color grading's always meh. It never really is revolutionary. The camera work is always just basic and shaky at times, and the zoom-ins make it look like an episode of The Office at times. I don't know if I'm the only one who got that vibe. Like it's just
enough attention.
Yeah, like it's just weird how it's just nothing. I don't even know what they were going for with that.
That's what I'm telling you. Most of this movie is meh, and the rest of it is just
like the only time it was visually interesting, or at least slightly visually interesting, was around Frank's death. When after like the scene building up to the suspense of his death, and then how everyone reacts to it was actually kind of suspenseful, and I was like, this is actually kind of interesting. And then Gotti's just like, let's just get over it, and it's never mentioned again. And the movie goes back to being shit. And
because in real life, Gotti killed the guy.
Yeah. The funny thing is, like, once after, like, he dies and everything and everyone's sad, we just cut to some news footage of people talking about the guy's disappearance. And then that starts a new trend of how there's so much news footage in this film for scenes they just didn't feel like filming. Like, why didn't they make that scene?
Do you want to...
No, yeah.
Do you want to film this scene?
Nah, that would be a cool scene. I was over here like, ooh, Frank's dead. I can't wait to see the scene where Gotti just beats the shit out of this guy and gets his revenge, and they just skip it.
Like, just reminded me of was that part, like right after, when the greatest fucking city in the world, like right after he breaks the fourth wall, which only does that in that scene and at the end of the movie, and it's totally unattached from everything. It's from no scene in the movie. It's just its own thing, but again, it doesn't add to it. So it has Gotti, the title. That's the Pitbull. And then you got Pitbull on top of real life footage of the real John Gotti as like the beginning credits play. And I'm like, okay, why are we now going into footage of real life Gotti? Like, usually that's stuff that's reserved at the end of a movie based off of a real person. Why is it at the beginning? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. There's no reason for. I have no words. Really I literally do not have any words because I don't understand how you can mess it up that bad. It's not. It wouldn't have been that hard to make a decent movie out of this. It wouldn't even have to have been that good. It would have been just fine, just passable. It wouldn't have been that hard. But I don't even know how they managed to mess it up this bad.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned earlier how the film like has so much exposition and yet still says nothing. And that's the thing with all the
Yeah,
jumping and all the stuff they focus on. They barely focus on anything that matters. Because again, John Gotti's life is very intriguing. There's a lot of stuff you could work with, and they just skip over all of it. Like, why didn't we see
yeah,
more of the community's respect for him? Why didn't we see more of the law trying to crack down on him? Why didn't we see more of his hits and like mob life actions? Like, instead, we just focus on him talking about doing a raid, his son getting in a fight, and him being upset, and then it never coming up again.
yeah,
And
yeah.
we just
It's
focus on
not
so much
hard to
fluff. It's
just
so
mob
weird.
person.
Like,
It,
there's
it
so
this
much you could do, and they do nothing. Like, for a 2-hour
yeah.
runtime, it says almost
Just
nothing.
it's the writing. The writing's the
Mm-hmm.
worst part of this, really. The directing is like a close second, but the
Mm-hmm.
writing is just awful. Because again, they just say everything and then they expect you to be invested, and it's like I don't care. I don't care about anything that happens because you don't give me a reason to care.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause again, you don't have to make Gotti a great person. You don't. I mean, you can kind of make him a shitty person, but if you're gonna at least try and make him seem like a good person, you gotta at least show it. There's
Yeah.
nothing that gets shown here.
And
Everything
other
is like,
than that,
obviously, you should know this. No, we don't know this.
yeah,
The whole issue, the whole problem of the movie boils down to
we
you
don't know
know,
it.
and the audience going, "No, I don't know." That is the whole problem of this movie.
Tell me
Every
about
single
it.
aspect of it boils down to that.
Please tell me. This movie bums me out, and I want to talk about a good movie. So what else do
Yeah,
we got?
for some closure. Speaking of closure, here's a good segue. My favorite line in the film. So, John is talking with Junior, and he's talking about how he wants to take a plea deal to get closure. So, John says, I believe I'm quoting this correctly. He's like, "Closure. This is a word for overeducated, underintelligent motherfuckers." And I'm just sitting here like, what does that even mean? That is the funniest. That is the funniest line I have ever heard in a long time. Like, that is, I don't even
That's
know.
not even the worst line in the movie. That's
For
not
real.
even. The worst line in the movie is when he looks. Is the last line when he looks at the camera. I tell you what, you never live to see another guy like me if you live to be 5,000, and he walks away. He walks away.
It's a tie. The worst lines of the movie is a tie between the first movie of the film and the last movie, which both take place in a similar
Greatest
framing at
fucking
the same
city in
scene.
the
That has
world.
nothing to do with the rest.
Where's fucking sitting?
It doesn't make any sense.
It is.
Yeah.
It's just so pointless.
This
Other than
the whole
that,
movie is pointless.
yeah. So I mean, are there any other major thoughts? I have a couple last thoughts. Any other major thoughts from y'all?
No, y'all can wrap it up because I want to talk about a good movie now.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I already said everything that pretty much
Yeah.
boiled down. Is just it's just too much. I mean, again, it sounds basic, but it's true. This is the worst. I've seen bad exposition in movies, but I've never seen this much terrible exposition and this much exposition that doesn't tell you anything. The whole film is just exposition, and it's not interesting. It's as simple as that. That is the core problem of the movie. So, yeah, we can wrap it up.
Other than that, I just wish they focused on other characters, because I mean, if Gotti's supposed to be the main character, he's boring. Junior's kind of a main character, but he's barely fleshed out, and the others are just kind of there. Last thing, I mean, I had a joke about John Gotti being a Force ghost in those in the opening and closing scene, because he's dead by that point. So I guess that's his ghost talking to the audience. Last thing. Apparently, Gotti's name has been butchered yet again. I thought this movie was bad enough, but 1 year later, on Lifetime Entertainment, came out a film called Victoria Gotti, My Father's Daughter, which is a film adaptation of Victoria Gotti's memoirs. Victoria Gotti is John Gotti's daughter, obviously, and Lifetime just made a film adaptation of her memoirs, exploring her life after he was arrested and her family and everything. I've only seen like 15 minutes because it was so boring. I mean, it's a Lifetime movie. What do you expect? But yeah, it was really boring, and I could not. I just didn't care. I was like, I've had enough Gotti for one lifetime. There is a I believe it's 1996. It came out. Yes, 1996. Made-for-TV film called Gotti. That was on HBO, and it's honestly decent. It's not like anything special because it has like a TV movie budget, but it has a lot more heart. than this film will ever have. So I'd honestly give that one a watch if y'all really, if y'all out there really want the story of John Gotti, then this HBO TV film is a lot better than this one. Trust me. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Long story short, this is how to fail at a biopic. You have to actually explore the life and the story of the character at hand. You can't just flimsily jump around all the time because you'll confuse your audience in any movie, especially a biography.
John Travolta is the way to kill your movie.
Dang, what do you got against John Travolta? John Travolta could have sold this if he honestly just been given better material.
No, you can't.
Damn, really? I think he could have.
No place for John Travolta anymore.
Damn. Would it have been better if it was Tom Cruise, another fellow Scientologist? Dude, Tom Cruise is Gotti.
This movie rather never been made.
That's fair.
I just had a stroke.
But yeah, that's just it in a nutshell. So I guess now we should get on to the next movie, which came out before this one, much before this one, Goodfellas. Yeah.
I fucking love Goodfellas.
Who doesn't?
Fucking love Goodfellas.
This movie is based on the 1978 Lufthansa heist, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, as well as a book called Wise Guys. What did you say, Logan?
Lufthansa.
Lufthansa? Okay.
Yeah.
Lufthansa.
Wait, is that the German airline?
Lufthansa.
Right?
Yeah, that's what they robbed.
And it was also based around a book, Wise Guys, by the character Henry Hill himself, the real life person, obviously. And
not to be confused. Hugo, put this up on screen. Not to be confused with the hit gangster rap song by Joe Pesci, also named Wise Guy. In that
this
song,
is real.
He says,
this is real.
In that song, he says, and I quote, "It's the bitches that'll get yous," and that is the main theme of Goodfellas. It is indeed the bitches that will get yous. I remind everybody at every turn that Joe Pesci has a rap album.
It is true.
He's got a super rap career.
And I remind people of that every chance I get because it's Joe Pesci doing rap.
What more could you need?
Right? In fact, don't just put it up on screen. Put the link for that.
Yes, I will give you all.
So that people can have their hand on the trigger when they're done with this and watch that glorious masterpiece.
It's the bitches that'll get yous, he said, and I took that to heart.
Good Lord.
I, of course, do not think the main theme of Goodfellas is it's the bitches that'll get yous. There are many themes of Goodfellas. I don't know, man. This is one of those movies where I don't like to sit down and break down why I like it on all these individual scales. I believe it is one of the flawless movies. Mm-hmm. It is really, really good. There are so many fun behind-the-scenes stories about how Martin Scorsese used to go around and tie everybody's tie, and about how that one long tracking shot came to be. It sounds like it was such a fun movie to work on. Mm-hmm. Like Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro playing pranks on Ray Liotta and shit like that. One day I would like to work on a movie like that where there are just so many fun stories from behind the scenes and everybody was having a good time.
Well, good luck with that in this day and age. Most of the stories you'll be hearing are with CGI effects and who's trying to fondle who. But yeah, anyways, we can save commentary on the Hollywood system for another episode.
With no Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, that is other.
But yeah, we could save commentary on Hollywood for another episode. Point is, like this, I know I should preface some details for the real life stories surrounding the situation were changed in the film for the sake of making it more creative. Like, for example, the character of Jimmy Burke, who was a real person, was eventually adapted into Robert De Niro's character, Jimmy Conway, who has a different personality and backstory. So some changes were made, which is why this isn't exactly a direct biography like Gotti was. And that's why it's seen as more enthusiastic. But yeah, I mean, I don't even know where to start with this because like everybody loves this movie.
All right.
I'll start with the opening scene.
Of course.
Yes. Start with the opening scene, and Triple M, you can jump right in as well, because I'm sure you got thoughts on it too. So I already talked about Gotti's opening scene earlier, and how that sets the tone of the film, and why I think it's good at setting the tone because it's so fundamentally terrible. But it's also just like it's just an awful way to start a movie in general. So because screenwriting 101 is you want to start your movie out with a bang. You want it to be something interesting that immediately engages the audience. And Goodfellas does such a good job at this that it's almost hard. I could go on for hours describing on how amazing just the first scene is, and how it sets the tone of the film. So first of all, it clearly starts in media res, so as in like it starts in the middle of the film. And usually it actually in media res in movies actually starts at like around the climax or right before the climax. But this part actually starts like directly in the middle of the film, which is really interesting. So it doesn't give away like the biggest like important plot points of the movie, which I think is really interesting and really engaging. But anyway, so I think that's a really cool thing to do because you're completely set out of the context of everything else, so you're immediately hooked in. So you see Henry, Jimmy, and Tommy all sitting in a car. You don't know who these people are, but you see Jimmy is the one driving, so you're like, okay, so maybe he's like the leader, right? And then you start hearing a banging in the back of the car, and this is a mob movie, so you're like, oh, there's some guy in the back of the car.
No, definitely.
But you're like, okay. You're like, so you're like, okay, do they know that someone is back there, or are they aware of that or not? Like you're automatically like, okay, what is going on? Like you already assume it's probably somebody is back there, but you don't know what. So, and then they pull over after some arguing. So when they pull over, it's great because they open it and then you see a guy that's like half dead. So this part is great because you see Tommy, again, you don't know who these people are. You see Tommy immediately go in and just start stabbing the guy. So you're like, okay, so now I know that this person doesn't care about human life, seems to be pretty impulsive, and is not afraid to get his hands dirty. Okay, got it. And you see Jimmy is kind of just watching, like, pretty unfazed about the whole thing, and he was the one driving, so you're like, okay, so he seems to be kind of the one that's in charge of this whole operation. And then you see Henry, and he looks a little mixed about it, so you don't know what's going to happen with him. And he's the one who's narrating it, so you're like, okay, so here's our main character. So that is like a very short synopsis of like what happens, and everything that is so great about it is you immediately know who these characters are. You don't even know their names yet. You don't know anything you don't have any context about them, but you immediately know what they're going to be like just from like the way that they're positioned, the way that they act. They barely say anything, and if they do, you don't even have to know what they're saying to understand what's happening. It's just so great because it automatically establishes the tone of the film, but it also introduces us to our three main characters, which is something that Gotti did such an awful job in because you don't know who Gotti is, even though he's talking directly to you. You still don't know who he is or what he's like. But you immediately know what these three people are like. So, anyway, that's why I think it's actually like a perfect template. It's probably the best opening scene I've ever seen in a movie.
I was about to say, that was pretty much all I had. The Goodfellas opening, in my opinion, is the greatest opening to a film ever.
I agree.
I always get chills when I hear Henry's first line, and then it transitions perfectly into the music, and it's just the snap zoom. It's all so good. Oh my god, it's so fucking good. I've seen it I think 8 times in the last month, and every time it never fails. That fucking first line, so good.
It is quite something how it all works because I mean. On a technical level, like, should we do story or technicality stuff first? What do you want to break it down?
Let's do technicality because I think story-wise, I think we're gonna have a lot more to say about story.
So I mean,
lies more on that.
On a technical level, I think that this movie definitely like bounces around the decade. Like it takes place around a decade, and it bounces around it flawlessly. Something that Gotti did not do. How does it do that? Because it doesn't bounce around. It just tells it linearly.
And that's the funny part is Gotti actually had a text at the bottom that told you what year it was.
And you still
And
couldn't follow
Goodfellas
it.
doesn't do that.
Yeah.
And you follow Goodfellas way better than you do with Gotti.
Like,
which is like,
Goodfellas has,
that
like,
just
one
speaks.
title card that says, like, 4 years later, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything
Just,
else you
like,
follow.
it's hard to tell.
Like, the movie is paced well enough for you to follow it. Like, you see, like, oh, here's Hill marrying I forgot her name. Not Kathy. Karen. Here's Hill marrying Karen for the first time. And then later on you'll see Karen and Hill with, like, a baby. And then later in the movie you'll see them with 2 kids who are more grown up, and you figure out time is passing without the movie having to tell you.
Yeah, you don't even have to question it. You just, like, automatically know what's going on. And they don't even tell you. They're not like, oh, our second kid was just born, like Gotti would do. They would be like, we have like 4 kids. It's like,
oh, this the day of the second birth of my daughter who was born yesterday, and also it was yesterday. Did you know that my son died yesterday? It
Very
was yesterday.
sad. Greatest fucking kid in the world.
Greatest fucking kid. You want to see another kid like him? He lived to be 80. That's it.
See, that's the thing. You can't not compare Gotti to like this movie. You know,
this is like the complete antithesis, which is why we picked it.
Right.
It's just it does everything that movie tried to do perfectly.
They're the same concept, but they do it in such like they're just polar opposites as to how they do it. It's baffling that it's even sad one was made like years after the other.
And the thing is that the movie has all kinds of various visual techniques that really help to capture it. Like the most iconic shot is that long take as Hill leads Karen into the restaurant. You get to see all kinds of stuff. You get to see the beauty of mob life. See all how they're all in a fun bar. Everyone's having drinks and laughing and stuff. It really captures the fun essence. You have
I like that shot a lot because for me. Well, there's 2 things, right? It's about. There's a funny story about how that shot came to be. Is Martin just wanted to do it into the front of the club, but they were like, "No, you can't. You got to find another way in, or use another club." And he was like, "Okay." So they had to go underground a couple of blocks away, and that's how they did it. But I like what that scene represents to me. Because it represents the seduction of both these characters, and they're both being seduced by different things. Karen is being seduced by this easy lifestyle that she is gaining by associating with. Sorry, images of Joe Pesci are popping up on my screen.
Oh Lord!
Karen is being seduced by this easygoing lifestyle that she has found access to. By associating with Henry. You know, she can cut corners. Everybody knows her. It's easy, and she loves it. She loves the luscious, luxury of it. I'm scrambling here, but you know what I'm trying to say. And then Henry is being seduced by the fame, or rather the infamy. Everybody he passes knows him. He has some kind of interaction with them, and he is a figure. He's an established figure.
And we'll get back to that because we'll get back to that when discussing story. Just from some other minor things I wanted to bring up. I noticed this film has freeze frames, which you don't really see in filmmaking nowadays, but the freeze frames actually really help. Like when it will just stop and Henry will narrate something. It really shows the impact of a moment. Like when we were first introduced to Jimmy, like when they freeze frame on him, I was like, this is a random moment to just freeze frame on a character. But that freeze frame tells you this guy is a big deal. You should watch out for him. They freeze frame on Henry on multiple other occasions as his life continues. Whenever something is serious, like when they kill that maid guy, and he's like really thinking on it. Like, that's a really good way to get across to the audience how something is tense and how you should be focused on something. Other than that, there's really fast-paced, gritty action. There's some really well-placed voiceover as a whole. And why am I getting Joe Pesci images in the Discord?
Why do you think I'm sending them to you? Put them up on the screen.
Oh, that's a lot of...
All of these images are amazing.
Yeah.
Joe
Pesci's right? It's just a whole icon now. Good lord. But yeah.
Okay, I just
He
found
did
this
something.
out. Okay, Goodfellas is only number 92 on the AFI Top 100, and honestly, that's a crime.
Damn.
What's number 100? Well, what's
100?
number one? Sorry, what's number one?
Oh, Citizen Kane, duh.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
I
That's...
don't think Citizen Kane is that great, but I
Ooh, there's a hot
understand
take. we'll do
Yeah,
that good
okay,
in the
yeah,
podcast
I-
episode.
It's a good
Okay.
movie. I just don't. I think it's overhyped. But
Yeah, I mean, if
Yeah,
it's,
no, I think it's like important as a film. I understand why it'd be on the
historical
top
importance,
100.
but like story wise.
Yeah, I understand on the why it would be on the top 100, but the fact that it's number one is, I mean, dude, it's like Titanic over Goodfellas. Are you fucking kidding me?
it fucking
That's
sucks.
a
I
fucking
hate that.
joke.
I've not seen
Oh
Titanic
my
in a
god!
while,
I have
but
to
I'll get back to that.
Sorry, I have to write an AFI top 100 paper as to why one movie should be on it or why one movie should be on it. I should talk about Titanic. I'm sorry.
We got so off track because of that lull.
Yeah,
and
that
I'm
is a
still
lot of.
sitting-
Yeah.
This is
I really
getting a
thought
bit
that it
racy.
just cut off.
We're-
Because all of a sudden,
Well,
everyone
that
stopped talking.
and these Joe Pesci pictures are
Yeah.
quite hypnotizing.
Well, I'm
this is
saying
more
that the
disorganized
Euro-
than the fucking Gotti script at this point. But yeah.
No,
Oh,
that's not possible. That's not possible.
Good
Anyway,
lord. Anyways.
but yeah, the fact that it's only number 92 on the AFI top 100 is a crime.
Mhm.
Sorry. Anyway.
Other than that, I mean, I guess we've already talked about like technical stuff. I think that as a whole, this movie just perfectly encapsulates the mobster lifestyle. It perfectly captures the ups, the downs, the middle life, like just everything about it. Because mobster movies will either focus on solely the action, on solely
Violence,
the
high-
drama,
yeah, like that intensity.
Like it's either solely the action, it's either solely the drama, or it's Gotti. In this case, it does everything perfectly, and I really like that. I can respect that. I guess because this movie you brought up earlier with Gotti, how it tries to glorify a straight up criminal. This movie is a good way to do something like that. How to sympathize with a bad person, because these mobsters are evil. They kill people. They break the law. They steal. They beat people up for no good reason. However, you really start to grow attached to them. Like you understand why Tommy is the way he is. Like Tommy has anxiety, has a sort of Napoleon complex to him, with how he has to always prove himself. Jimmy is super paranoid and will take out other people before they can take out him. Henry's obviously the most relatable of them all, as he's just a regular kid who was sort of wrapped up into this. And I think that's quite impressive, how they really round out all these characters, despite the fact that they're criminals. And more stories should take a page from this.
Wait, so okay, so one thing that I thought was kind of cool was they actually presented, at least kind of closer to the beginning of the film, it kind of made you think mob life was kind of cool, at least in a little. I'm not, you don't think it's good guy work Gotti was trying to make it, but you're like, okay, I understand why these guys want to be, because that's the thing is Henry doesn't. I kind of disagree when you said he got wrapped up in it, because he kind of didn't really. He wanted to be part of it.
Yeah, that's fair.
He was actively trying to seek it out. I do think later on he got, he started kind of regretting it a little bit. But as a kid, that was his idols were people that were in the mob.
And that
because
definitely
because you follow it through his eyes, you understand why he sees it that way. You're like, yeah, it's kind of cool. They get to do whatever the hell they want. I mean, anybody, everybody's dream is kind of to do that. But you don't see the adverse effects of that until the story starts getting a little further into it.
And that ties into the bigger theme. That ties into the bigger theme of all in all. It's about the addiction of the mobster lifestyle. It's like a drug. It drags you in, you become addicted, but then it will slowly tear apart your life, which is ironic because Henry himself does become addicted to drugs, which is what gets him caught and arrested. But yeah, it's just it's all alluring, it's all fancy and glitz and glamour, and shows you why you'd want to be this. However, it does come with consequences. Obviously, the mobsters are, well, illegal, so you have to worry about cops. You have to worry about trust and order. The mobsters end up turning on themselves more than they have to worry about the police. So it shows you that all that like glitz and glamour is really superficial, and there's a lot more destructive conflict underneath it all. Unlike Gotti, which obviously just glorified the mobster lifestyle and didn't really show any in between. Other than that, I think what I should say, instead of it being Henry who's like dragged in to the mob lifestyle, I'd say it was more his wife Karen. Like, she's just kind of your own average person who ends up getting addicted to this style, like Henry. But instead of it being for respect and because it looks cool, it's because she gets what she wants, like Logan mentioned earlier. Like, she's getting the sort of easygoing lifestyle. She's impressed by all the power. She's impressed by the power that Henry has and that his friends have. All the respect and glory that he can give her. And she just sort of becomes obsessed with it.
She's also more detached from it because she's not, because at least because Henry goes out there and he pulls the trigger.
Yeah,
like
and
she doesn't.
Yeah, you can see that she has doubts because they let her be a narrator as well, and you get to hear her doubts.
Henry sees, sometimes he does regret it, but he sees like the things that he's doing and what the consequences of that and how that affects other people. And Karen is like, she kind of knows that it's happening, but it's like she doesn't see it, so she can like kind of detach herself from it. So she's more willing to ignore it. So it makes her a bit more sympathetic in that way.
Although near the end, she does end up becoming just fully wrapped into it herself. Like, she's helping Henry do his jobs. She's having fights with him. She straight up tries to kill him at one point. So you can see that this will take a toll even on just passerby people like her, which was quite. And I thought it was nice to have that perspective of the people who want this life and the people who don't. To sort of wrap around like what this does to just people in general. Other than that,
what I like is this. There's a couple details that I like, little themes or motifs that come up a lot. You never really find out. You never get details on what it is that they do. Like, they always talk about their work, but they never really say what specific details, like how they do their work. That you just kind of know if they steal stuff, right? And I think a lot of that is, they don't care. It's all business to them. They'll do whatever they need to get money, and that's why the audience never really figures out what specific jobs they're doing, because they don't need to know, because they didn't need to know. They just knew that they were going to get money out of it.
If the characters don't care, then the audience shouldn't care either.
Yeah, and it's the same with the way that it's so casually dismissed that Henry is a really shitty person. There's one line that I like to bring up when he just casually says, "I got Karen's mother to sell her house so I could post bail."
Yeah, that was so fucked up when I heard it. I was like, really? For him?
Blown off like some casual thing. But the reality of it is, Henry is such a toxic, abusive, horrible person that he doesn't care. Whatever gets him out of jail is fine. So it's like Annika said, he doesn't care, so the audience doesn't need to care. It's so well done, and even, oh my god, I love it so much.
Because you don't even necessarily connect. That's what I'm saying, is like Gotti, like they couldn't make Gotti a shitty person because Henry is a shitty person. Henry is like one of the worst people ever. But again, because you see it in his point of view and because he makes it seem like it's all glitz and glamour, you kind of get wrapped up into it too. That's the whole thing you were talking about is how, the theme of the movie is that it like the mob style corrupts people. And it kind of corrupts the audience a little bit in a way. It like tries to do that. It tries to present, at least towards the beginning, the mob style, like in a very, glamorous way. And you're like, you totally understand why these people are getting into it. And, and honestly, it's like, you're not as affected, or at least, you still hate and you still can't stand that these people murder people and you still think they're shitty people. But because the fact that it's told in their point of view, it's kind of weird. It's like it manipulates the audience in a weird way. I think that's really cool.
Mm-hmm. One of the few like good examples of how to make morally repugnant like protagonists or likable characters who are flawed like that. Definitely in the second half of the film, like it just goes downhill. You start to see all the effects rack up as people are fighting each other, as they're being ratted out and stuff. So it just, like I said before, it shows how this lifestyle doesn't last. It's just an adrenaline rush, which will eventually fade out. And by the end of it all, like I really like the ending. It really spoke to me because like it shows like Henry is ratted out, or not ratted out. He's caught. Then he rats out his own friends. He's able to like get bail. How he's able to just go and live in a nice suburban household in exchange for ratting out everyone else. And the thing is that he's upset about that. Like, he's free, but he's upset. Like, he talks about how he's like, I asked for spaghetti, and what I got was wet noodles and some ketchup and stuff. And he just goes into his house, he looks at the camera, kind of like remorsefully, and then as he closes the door, you hear a prison cell noise. Like, it's a metaphor for how Henry has escaped the toxic lifestyle of the mob culture, and now he has been trapped by the imprisonment of just everyday mundane culture. Because the thing is, as much as we critique these mobsters, like as much as we critique this lifestyle, the whole point of the story is to show how we would want this. Like, Henry is just some average guy who saw that cool mobster lifestyle and was like, I want that. I want to be free and be able to do whatever I want like that. Mm-hmm.
I think what's evident of that is, well, I think, like you said, the food is one of the main motifs. Whenever they're having conversations, whenever they're talking or just, experiencing this life, they're always eating.
That's all mobster movies now. All these mobster movies like to show off
except
for
food.
Fucking
Gotti.
For real.
Very Italian.
They never eat
American thing, so I mean, I understand why they do that.
They never eat in Gotti, which is another thing that bothered me that I never brought up. But they're always eating, and the meals are always so rich and decadent and look amazing. And then it's like he gets to witness protection, and he's just an average Joe. He doesn't have that life anymore. Yeah, it sounds disgusting. But what I like to think about is how even in the court, as it's all falling apart around him, all he can think about is how good he had it. And then he starts talking to us. He looks right at us.
And straight up breaks the fourth wall.
His life, as he destroys everyone's life, he could still only think about how amazing it was. It's so well made. It is truly, and Scorsese has so many good movies. Shutter Island, Casino, Gangs of.
I have not seen that.
Taxi Driver, King of Comedy. I'm doing a binge right now. I'm trying to watch all of his movies, and it's a lot because he has a fucking lot of movies. But Scorsese has so many good movies, but I truly think that he will never top Goodfellas. It is the closest he has come to topping Goodfellas for me is The Irishman. But The Irishman is hard because not everybody has the attention span for 3.5 hours of talking.
Yeah.
I barely do.
But yeah, like as a whole, I just think it's a very well encompassed ending that appeals to like showing how morally fucked this type of person is, but also how much you feel for them and their situation. You're like, this is wrong, but also you wouldn't mind having that lifestyle. It's a very like morally mixed ending, and I really like that. I mean, there's just everyone said everything good about this movie. What else is there to say? It's great.
Oh, I want to go back to a couple. I forgot a couple parts in the beginning. Was talking about after the whole like car scene, it goes to Henry's childhood. I think that was like, even though it's brief, the fact that you kind of see him growing up into that. Other than, I mean, because they could have established that he's been with the mob since he was a kid. And it wouldn't have, it seems like it wouldn't have changed too much plot-wise. And plot-wise, yes, it wouldn't have changed anything. But characterization-wise, I think that flashback was really, really important. Because first of all, you see him get abused by his father. So that immediately makes you way more sympathetic to him. Because he starts out as a kid.
Well, to be fair, he was skipping school for like multiple days, so you know.
He was also like beat though, like really, like the way that they frame the shot of him getting beat is like
like with him, his father towering over him, as he's just curdled up.
Yeah,
you really feel for that character.
He was a shitty kid back then too. I mean, don't get me wrong, he was not a good kid because I mean, again, he was the one who actively wanted to be part of the mob.
Yeah.
But they frame him, but because he's a kid and they frame him really sympathetically, that you immediately kind of like buy into that, I guess, in a way, is that because you see him growing up into it, I guess it's like you could, I don't know, it's just way more, you just see him way more sympathetic because you see this kid doing this and getting grown up on it. It's almost like, in a way, you could be like, oh, maybe he was kind of groomed into this like environment. And it kind of excuses in your head a little bit of like what he does. It's like, oh, well, he had a bad childhood. Also, they did a lot of a better job about talking about the ethnicity part of that because you can't talk about an Italian mafia movie and not mention the fact, especially given the year that it takes place.
Yeah, like Tommy brings up some stuff about that.
Plight of Italian Americans. You can't just gloss over that. And Gotti talks about it.
Fucking shine box.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Tom. They definitely have that surrounding like characters like Tommy in the film.
Yeah. So Gotti doesn't even talk. Doesn't even talk about the fact that they say, "Oh, we're oppressed." It's like, okay, but why and how? But here they tell you it's like because these people are Italians, and again, they do it in a very subtle way, and they don't bring it up all the time. But you know why they do that. And even within the community, because Henry is half Irish and Jimmy is also Irish, I think, or at least part Irish, is that they're, they kind of talk about that they're not quite part of the group still.
Yeah, they're not allowed to be like made because of their half Irish.
Yeah, because that's a very big thing.
And that's why they were dependent on Tommy.
People in my family that went through that whole thing, the half Irish, half Italian thing. It was a real thing for a very long time, and especially within the Italian American community. So it's the fact that they talk about that, I think, is really good. Because I also like that they did make that Henry was, again, if it's based off of a true story, so they but the fact that Henry is half Irish, I think, is really important because it shows that he had to work harder to earn the trust of these people than the other people did. I think that that's a really important thing that is really subtle, but it kind of changes a lot if it wasn't there. But you don't notice it, I guess, unless it wasn't there. So I think that's really cool. Also, the part where we see Tommy grown up for the second time, technically. The first time outside of the beginning of the film is when he starts, when Henry starts calling him a funny guy. And, that scene in the bar.
Wait. Funny how?
Funny
exactly.
how?
Yeah, funny.
Am I like a clown for you?
Yeah. So, and that, I can't even remember. How long did that go on for? That's
like a minute or two?
It's like, it felt, okay, it was a minute, but it felt like 5 minutes for me. Because it was so good. Because, remember, the first time you see Tommy...
Straight up kills a guy.
He fucking shanks a guy. Shanks a guy in the back of the car that's half dead with no hesitation. That was the last time we saw him, and then we briefly saw him as a kid in a flashback, but we didn't even see really that much of him. So the first impression we got of him was he stabbed a guy. And now that he's joking, because he's like joking around with Henry, he does it so seriously that I was legitimately scared. Like, I'm not even kidding. I felt so tense in that scene because I was like, this guy is unpredictable.
Yeah, Tommy was just the time bomb waiting to take in that film.
It was so good. And I was like, I felt uncomfortable. I felt like what Henry was feeling like. And then when he was joking and he was like, I got you. I was like, I was caught off guard with that. I was like, that was so good.
Straight up shoots a kid like 8 times for saying go fuck yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's a time bomb. And again, they immediately established that. And the fact that you get
that's what
the
gets
scene
him
after
killed.
that.
Yeah, the fact that he killed someone who was made gets him killed in the end a few years later.
Yeah.
So that is actually a big tie-in point, ironically, of the film, which is why I believe they showed it first at the beginning of the film, because that event ties into all this whole controversy of them thinking they're all gonna get whacked, and so that little thing ended up being very important. So that was interesting. Overall, other than that, some points I want to bring up. If there's anything I wish that they went more in depth with, it would actually be the actual history surrounding the film. Mainly the Lavanza. Is that correct? I forgot.
Lufthansa.
Yes, that one. That whole heist situation. I wish they would go more in depth with that, because I mean, like I just read, because I researched it shortly before we did this podcast, and it sounds really interesting. Like you had everyone wearing ski masks, busting into this cargo area, and then rounding up a bunch of coworkers, and then have everyone tied up, go into the airline's vault, and all this stuff, make an escape. Like it sounds so cool. I don't know if Martin Scorsese is like an action director, but that would be a really cool action scene or something to really like get you the audience invested into their work, and sort of add to the effect of what's going on.
But it was impacting.
Yeah, it was impacting. Although they do just kind of like skip over it
like at the
in
end.
the movie. Like they say, like we're gonna do this big heist. Then next thing you know, they say that they did the heist, and it's all over the news. And then we see the effects of it, but we never really saw what happened with it. So I just kind of wish that they would go into more in depth with some of the historical stuff like that. However, the movie still worked incredibly well without it, because we still got enough of everyone's life in the story. So I think it still worked. This is the most food I've ever seen in a mobster movie of like anything. Like everyone's eating everything. It made me so hungry. It made me so hungry.
I would have loved to be on that set. Can you imagine?
Just try every dish.
I imagine conversations between Ray Liotta and Robert De Niro just showing up like, what do you think they're going to feed us today? Like, what are we going to get? I'm so jealous.
But
Dude,
yeah,
well,
I mean,
it made me like, it made me want to go back home from college and just have like a nice big Italian dinner again, because I haven't had that in a couple months, and I was like, I want that again, please.
But yeah, like other than that,
all in all, there's not much left for me to say about this. It's my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, it's just really good. Yeah, like y'all should just see it. I do have, this is fun fact. This is where I discovered my first nitpick in film. The first one I called out all by myself as a little film critic. So like this is so for this nitpick, this is like about 26 minutes into the film. Paulie is having a conversation about doing a dealership with someone. So Paulie has a cigarette in his mouth as he's talking. Like he just put a cigar in his mouth. It's filmed as an over-the-shoulder shot from behind Paulie's head. You can see the cigar clearly in his mouth as he's talking, and his voice is muffled because of that. And then as it cuts to a medium shot in front of of Paulie, the cigar is nowhere in sight, but you still hear his voice muffled as if he has it. But it's just gone.
Hey, don't
it's just not there. So yeah, that's my
act like
my
you
nitpick.
didn't almost say Gotti just then. You
yeah, Paulie almost said Gotti.
Try and act like you. I heard that shit.
But point is, like, Paulie had a cigar in his mouth, then as soon as it cuts over to him still talking, it just vanishes. So that's my one nitpick.
You've ruined the movie for me now.
Movie, yeah, right there. Movies are over. Checkmate, Martin Scorsese. Marvel movies are better than you because you made one mistake. Haha, I got you. Hashtag exposed. Hashtag canceled. Anyways, some people would actually say that.
Which is sad.
But yeah,
we're not going to talk about all the visual inconsistencies in Avengers Endgame's final battle.
Oh boy. But yeah, point is, I mean, those are all my main thoughts. Just wanted to say, so for comparisons, Goodfellas as a whole just has a strong emphasis on the highs and lows of the mob life, while Gotti mostly just focuses on the highs and over exaggerates how cool it is, while also just having too much fluff and filler. So if there's anything to take away, you got to actually tell your narrative clearly to get the point, the mob life, and also just make a good movie. Yeah, Goodfellas just blows this Gotti out of the park. Just no question.
Your ultimate goal is to make a good movie and tell a good story, and one of those did it really well, and the other absolutely dropped the ball.
Yeah.
So
but anyways, I mean, that's about it.
Moving on to recommendations
real
quick.
Recommendations. So, what do y'all have to recommend for
Annika,
movies,
you can go
shows, or
first.
whatever.
Ooh, let me think. Let me see what I've seen recently.
Greatest fucking city in the world.
The
Great
greatest
fuck.
fucking city in the fucking world.
Say something you like.
Like, I keep watching like films for like history classes, so like I don't have a lot of time to watch a lot of things. I don't know. I saw Kiki's Delivery Service today. That was pretty great. It's just a nice, wholesome movie. It felt really good because the world's kind of shitty, so it's nice to kind of just watch something cute. I don't know. I don't really have any really good recommendations right now.
Well, that's a good one. But yeah,
Yeah.
Triple M, do you have one?
Invincible.
Well, I mean, you've already recommended that. I know the show is coming out very soon.
The show is coming out and it's good, so shut up and
Yeah.
Invincible.
Anything new to recommend?
I don't know, man. I've been watching a lot of Martin Scorsese movies, as I said. If I had to recommend one, it would probably be no.
Okay, never mind.
Okay. There's a movie called Carlito's Way, starring Al Pacino. It is really, really good. It's a gangster movie, but not in the typical sense. It's really great. It has one of the most tense final chase scenes I've ever seen in a movie. It's awesome. I love it. Check it out. It's amazing. Carlito's Way.
For me, my recommendation is a bit weird, but I mean, I don't know if y'all remember, this was a craze like in 2013. The video game / anime series Yokai Watch, which a lot of people compared to Pokemon and stuff. Basically,
another collect them all anime.
Yeah. So Yokai Watch is still going, which surprises me. But my point is, Yokai Watch, not just a few years ago. So they do like theatrical films for the anime. And there was a theatrical film. I believe it's the third one. It has not been translated to English, so like the title is kind of iffy. But I believe the title translates to Yokai Watch the Movie: A Whale of Two Worlds. Basically, it follows the story of the games, which is about this kid who has a watch that lets him see magic spirits. This movie, I'm recommending it in particular because it's a very interesting piece of media, because the whole gimmick of the movie is that they cross from animation to live action. Like, there's a magic whale that transcends their dimensions so that the anime characters turn into live action / CG replicas of themselves. So that was just an interesting gimmick to keep up for the whole movie, to see all the characters as real people cosplaying as them and whatnot. And I mean, the story of the film is just kind of it's just a cheesy kids film, but I think that whole effort of transitioning between animation and live action multiple times was kind of fun. Has some funny jokes, has a heartwarming message. And I mean, if you don't know anything about the Yokai Watch lore, you don't really need to go to like research it or anything. Just go into the movie, I guess I'd say. You can probably find it on YouTube with subtitles and stuff. So yeah, I just recommend that because it's weird and wacky.
I do have one other thing. So so this is a bit more, this is a bit different, but Bicycle Thieves is an Italian film from the 1940s, I think. I mean, it's after World War II, so it's like late 40s, early 50s, I think. It's a really good film with like serious moral dilemma choices. It's a really good illustration of Italian neorealism. And if you just want a really good look at really good raw cinema, then watch that. It's
all right then.
It's pretty darn good. So it's got a lot of really interesting themes. It's a pretty simple plot, but it's really interesting. So if you're into that kind of thing, so expand your film palette a little bit, then that's a good one for you. So.
All right then. I mean, I guess that about wraps it up. This has been the greatest fucking podcast in the world. You'll never see amateurs. Yeah. You'll never see amateurs like us if you live to be 5,000. In the future, we'll probably be discussing all kinds of crazy stuff. Obviously, there's a certain there's a certain the director's cut on the horizon, so keep a keep a watch for that. that'll be a big one. But yeah, other than that, I'm trying to think of a funny quote to end this on. Hashtag Joe Pesci. Hashtag greatest fucking city in the world.
Bitches.
Okay, bye.
That'll get you.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.